Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. You've seen our next guest in The Hunger Games, Game of Thrones, and now you can see her in the miniseries Picnic at Hanging Rock, as well as the new film In Darkness, which she co-wrote and produced and stars in as a blind pianist caught in the middle of a little murder and espionage. Let's take a look.
Detective Inspector Oscar Mills, if I could just ask you a few questions. Did you know Miss Cavell?
We were neighbours. She was always kind to me.
So you didn't hear anything?
No.
28-year-old Veronique Rodich fell from her apartment building in what appears to be a suicide. Alleged war criminal officially identified his daughter's body.
Did you know Veronique well?
Sophia, please look after it for me.
There was a woman in the end of my arm. She's blind.
Is it true that the loss of one sense sharpens the others?
I'm being followed.
These people kill every day.
What is it?
Whatever game you think you're playing, you just stumbled into someone else's. You don't have to do this.
Everybody, Natalie Dormer, let's hear it.
Hi, guys. Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Ricky.
Hello. Thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on the movie.
Thank you.
You wrote it. You co-wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
How did that start? What made you want to where did this idea come from, and how did you start writing it?
Anthony, the director, and my other half had this idea burning in his back of his head for years that he wanted to write a contemporary thriller, psychological thriller. He had this idea in his head of a musician who hears a murder, and it goes from there. He was trying to find a writing partner for about 6 months, and this was back in like 2009. And he would come home every night and he'd be like, they just don't get it. They can't see what I can see. The Scandi noir thing and everything hadn't happened yet. This sort of like, you know, this renaissance of psychological thriller. So I knew where...
The what hadn't happened yet?
Like the Scandinavian,
gotcha.
like the bridge and, you know, and the killing and Girl with a Dragon Tattoo and... you know, we were like, no one's making psychological thrillers. And he would come home and he would be like, no one's getting it. And I was talking to him, we were having dinner one evening, he was like, why don't you co-write it with me? He's like, let's do this. And I was like, okay. And it went from there.
Were you a little like, boundaries though, because I don't want to disagree with you too much or anything like that, or did you guys already kind of know?
But I knew his sensibility, you know, and it was all the movies we watched as a couple. It was Touch of Evil, it was all the Hitchcocks we watched, and the 40s film noir, and then the 70s, it was The Conversation and Clute, and then all the European movies contemporary European movies that we loved watching. I mean, the French make thrillers very well. With Guillaume Canet or Cavalier, so I knew exactly what he wanted to do, and I was at the same time I was in a moment of frustration trying to find a three-dimensional, flawed, interesting female protagonist, you know. So I was like, hell, let's just take the bull by the horns and write it ourselves.
So you got the chance to kind of write the character that you wanted to play.
Well, the interesting thing is, this was pre-Game of Thrones and pre-The Hunger Games. So I thought I was going to write it as a cathartic experience. But when we first started, I thought I was going to be Veronique, the Emily Ratajkowski role, because I wasn't the dirty business of it all. I wasn't bankable enough, you know. But obviously, this little TV show that I did for 5 years
I've never heard of it.
Changed that. And then that was, because I kept a folder for years, a file that I thought, that was sort of, news clippings and, like things that I'd gathered, research. And I had this folder that was Sophia that I thought I was going to have to give to another actress. So it was an amazing moment sitting with producers and them going, oh, no, you can play her.
It's interesting that you reference films from the 40s and some from the 70s because there was a thriller renaissance in Hollywood movies in the 90s as well, which this movie kind of reminded me of as well. I don't think you're referencing anything specific from that time, but there was this renaissance of like the Basic Instinct and Sliver and all of these movies that this felt like it sort of lived in that world of as well.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying tonally. I completely agree with you. And, and you and I have talked about De Palma off stage and everything as well, and 100%. But the difference is, in the course of the beautiful thing about this is in the course of the 9 years it's got from writing it to me sitting in front of you, is the dialogue over women and female protagonists and anti-heroines specifically has changed. Mm-hmm. So even though those female characters existed within that genre in the 90s, I feel like the gender flip of protagonist was not there. Oh, yeah. And any femme fatale had to ultimately be punished, right? And like Hollywood has a history of that, whether it's Laura, Gene Tierney, or, like films like Laura or Leave Her to Heaven with Gene Tierney, and or even Butterfield 8, which, isn't a thriller, but something with like Elizabeth Taylor. Those unorthodox, unconventional women that are human, that are flawed. I mean, the audience get to enjoy them, but then they have to be punished in the end. And I think that's the difference now of contemporary TV and filmmaking. It's like we're allowing our three-dimensional women who may be a little unsavory around the edges to exist and breathe.
I couldn't agree more. But I also love that we're going to continuously disagree about the movies that I see in your movie and the movies that you see that you made. No,
you are fully welcome to see what you want to see. Being the operative word.
Did you find that you were writing and you were making this movie over the last 9 years? You started shooting it a couple years ago. Did you find though that your story and what you were writing was affected by the way that female characters were starting to be portrayed in movies and television? Were you talking about that at all, or was it just sort of natural, the story that you told?
Encouraged, definitely. Pissed off in places because I had this great idea that that there were, I don't want to spoiler alert, that there were tattoos involved, and then Girl with a Dragon Tattoo came out, and I was like, damn. That's what happens when you're writing stuff or making stuff. I mean, I see that as an actor all the time. People tend to have cool ideas that are very similar at the same time. But no, I was definitely encouraged by it. And it was proven that there was an appetite for it, that the audience wanted. So no, I was just encouraged by that, tsunami that was gathering and has very much come to the fore in, the last 6 months of conversation.
Let's talk about playing a blind person. What kind of research did you do, or what did you look into to sort of get that down?
I was helped an awful lot by an institution called the Royal National Institution of Blind People in London. And when we began, when pre-production was on the horizon and we could see it coming up, Anthony and I went into the RNIB. We met a wide selection of partially sighted and blind people, spent whole days there talking to them. I had a lovely girl called Sabina who taught me how to use a cane properly. Her and her, sort of her RNIB handler sort of came and visited me. I learned a lot. Basic things debunked, like, a lot of blind people, it's a line in the film, a lot of blind people are light sensitive, which helps when you're making a movie that you can turn the lights on. Because a lot of partially sighted or blind people they do it for security, and they also do it for reassurance. And I met this wonderful young girl called Emily Davison who runs like Fashion Eyster, which is a sort of a Twitter and social feed. Look it up, guys. Instagram, which debunks all the theories that young blind women don't want to wear makeup, be interested in fashion, have a stylistic life. You know, we were like, can I wear mascara? You know, and it was really refreshing to find out all of these things.
I'd imagine a fair amount of that affected your writing of the movie as well, when it just came to some of those early sequences of what a blind person goes through in terms of getting home from work, when the trains get flipped and stuff like that.
It played beautifully into the, it played beautifully into the genre of a thriller, the meticulousness with which partially sighted or blind people have to live their life so that they know, and then therefore the metaphorical as well as literal idea of messing up their control. Mm-hmm. You know, Sophia there is a control freakery to her personality that lends itself to everything in its place. And as you realize that she's not completely what she seems, and she is on her own mission as well, the discipline of her existence, it just lended itself very nicely. I mean, it's a construct, of course it is. And anyone here who knows, you know, Wait Until Dark and Hepburn's performance, you know, we loved that movie. And Anthony was inspired by it, but that, you know, it's a metaphor, like all good thriller and all good horror. That darkness is a metaphor, obviously, for the bigger story that we wanted to tell about Sophia facing her darkness.
So I have to ask, what was the writing process like between you and your other half?
Complex.
Yeah.
No, it was great. It was
especially if it's his sort of vision to begin with. Originally, sure. I'm sure there's going to be moments where it can be a little like, don't mess with my vision, or
sure. I mean, we have different skill sets. I mean that's kind of an obvious thing to say, but we didn't write in the same room. We found the way of being most efficient was to take a scene each, you know, and go off and draft that scene and then swap it. And I've actually talked to David Benioff and Dan Wise in the time that I was shooting Game of Thrones and asked how they co-wrote. And I think I'm right in saying they write originally when they first started out together. You know, they wrote in a very similar way. It's like, you have that scene, I have that scene, and we'll swap. So there are scenes in the movie that, even though they've got Anthony's paw prints all over them, I feel they are innately mine because, you know, I did the first draftings of them, and for him, vice versa. We learned pretty quickly not just to sit there opposite each, staring, eyeballing each other, going line by line. I mean, we learned that quite quickly.
You had a moment and you're like, we can't
do this. You say, we said some things that we probably wouldn't have said to each other in any other circumstance, so.
Now, when you get to set and he's directing, do you kind of relinquish any sort of, and I guess not thoughts, because you're still acting and I'm sure there's still conversations happening, but do you ask him about what he's doing as a director at all, considering you wrote it and probably had your own ideas, or do you just stand back?
Yeah, sure, and he, you know, the autonomy lies with him because, you know, the autonomy is with the director. So I did have to take a step back and, you know, that was sometimes challenging. Yeah. But also, I mean, I had enough to be getting on with, to be honest with you. The beauty of writing something is and it was I think it was, I'll have to check, I think it was a 28-day shoot. It was bloody fast. And the beauty of co-writing it with your director is you don't need to spend time, you know the scenes inside out, and you know what the turning point within the scene is, what the scene is about, you know what A to B is. So, I mean, we did rehearsal. We did a few, you know, we did do bits of rehearsal with the other actors during the weeks of pre-production on pivotal scenes. But we had a shorthand. We were in each other's minds. So that definitely helped the speed with which you need to shoot an independent film, especially if you're outside. And there's a sequence, a shot that's when I'm being beaten up in a van and I get dragged through Notting Hill Market, Portobello Road, And those aren't extras. Those are real Londoners because we didn't have the money for supporting artists.
Really, when you get out of the van and you're running around?
Yeah, and the boys, the wonderfully, incredibly talented Cy Bell, our cinematographer, and Anthony, they wanted a oneer so much. They wanted from the time that I was beaten up in the van, through the market, plop on the floor at the end. They were really going for a oneer. And in the end, we have cut into it to serve the story for the pace. But and you see these poor people just trying to buy their bananas and apples and tie-dye T-shirts in the market. What the hell is going on? So speed was always of the essence. It's like God help us that a member of the public actually looks down the lens when we've got we're on that take that works.
The part of the shot that maintains a oneer inside the van is beautiful, though. The choreography there and the stunts are incredible.
Thank you. I love stunt work. I love I love me a bit of action, and obviously Ed Skrein is old hat at that. So that was our first day of shooting, actually. The van, we're like, Anthony was like, I want to start with something strong, something challenging, something that's going to sort of,
God bless him.
Yeah, inspire the crew to go, this is how we're going to do this. Right. And it worked because everyone really had the adrenaline and up their game for what would have been an incredibly, relatively speaking, is like a stressful day shooting in a public space with a lot of action. And Anto was like, we'll start with that one. But it worked. It straight away, we were like, everyone was like, okay, we're operating at that level.
Were there any producers or anything like, are you sure you want to, you don't want to like just a day of just like doorknob turning or anything?
Exactly, right.
Is there any chance that you're going to direct in the future?
I would never say never, but I'm more curious at the moment about, development and writing again.
Are you going to continue writing?
I would like to explore writing again. Yes, I really would. Co-writing or on my own. It's definitely at the front of my brain at the moment. Yeah.
I'd imagine you have a lot more ideas now because once you start writing, it's almost like a disease. You're like, oh, here's another idea for a movie, and you're back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get the bug, right? Because it's addictive. Imagining something, putting it on the page, and then real life people saying your words and your feelings out loud. But it also has emboldened me as an actress to go up to a director or go up to an actor on set, and I did it a lot on Picnic at Hanging Rock and The Madman and the Professor were the two projects that I did straight after. It emboldened me to go, guys, can I change this line? I think it would be more natural if XYZ, because I loved it when Ed Skrein or Neil Maskell or Jolie Richardson would turn around to me and go, nah, about this line. And, I'd momentarily put my writer's hat back on and we'd have the conversation. And then, it felt like a family. When you produce, write and star and, and with Anthony directing, it was a passion project. Like everyone was doing this not for the money, I can tell you that. And I just felt like it was an addictive quality to really feel part of a team.
You brought up Picnic at Hanging Rock. We have a clip from it that we're going to show, and then let's talk for a few minutes about that show. Let's show a clip from Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Some of your companions have managed to lose themselves. We've escaped.
Something terrible has happened.
Here it is then, retribution.
They stopped searching. Shocking. It's been a week.
Where are they?
The girls are gone. Missing. Presumed dead.
First things first, I love the sunglasses.
Yeah, having a bit of a Gary Oldman moment there, right?
That's exactly what it is, right? It's The Fifth Element. Isn't that what he wore in The Fifth Element? Is that what you're referencing?
Oh, no, I was thinking of... No, I'm saying Dracula.
Because Dracula, that's right.
They did have them. The Victorians did have, a version of sunglasses. And with my stupid pale blue eyes, it was a courtyard with white sheets hanging up. And there was just, bounce everywhere. And I was like, this. And the director, Larissa, was like, Nat, do you think you could open your eyes a bit more? And I'm like, yeah, it's like Australia at midday. in the middle, you know, in their summer. And I'm like, and then the wonderful Edie Kurza, who was a fantastic costume designer, she was like, maybe this is the time for the period sunglasses. And now it's just, you know, it's such a cool shot.
Yeah, it's an incredible shot. Now, you are clearly a movie buff. This is not necessarily based off of the original movie because I think that's based off of a book, right? But still, that is a classic movie. Did you have any trepidation or hesitation before signing on to this?
No, because I think a good text and the original text of Joan Lindsay's novel from 67 is such an incredible story that, you know, this beautiful little novel. It's around 200 pages. There's all this subtext in it that was never explored, even in the Weir movie. I would never take away anything from the hallowed, reverent place that Weir's movie stands in. But there was so much opportunity with the raw original material to expand it and in a very different tone and style, explore, again, very psychologically, this ensemble in what is effectively a 6-hour movie, you know? So we're there, we hold it in its hallowed place, and I know that Larissa studied it in film school, but, you know, B. Christian, the writer, really did go back to the original novel, went back to Joan Lindsay.
It's very different from the Weir film. Like it sets itself apart tonally from the Weir film. Not just 100%. In exploring subtext, but the tone is completely different.
Yeah, and the way it looks as well. The you know, there was like we had in pre-production, we had like a 200-page lookbook, and the references were visual, you know, really, really vivid, which they did, and the popping of color and the surreality, the magical realism. You know, David Lynch was referenced a lot in pre-production, and there's a Lewis Carrollian kind of feel to this picnic, which I really, really love. And we didn't know in the cut how far they were going to push it, so we really played. And there's glitter and old school tricks, like glitter sprinkled in front of the lens and crystals, and it's like if we could do it practically, we did it practically. You know, water in glass screens, and it's great because it translates to the psychological meltdown of the characters dealing with this mystery of these girls and teacher going missing.
Let's get some questions from our audience. Who has a question? Right here.
Hi, Natalie. I'm a big fan of yours from your Tudor days. And
hi.
I never watched your Games of Thrones days yet. So, my question is, if you had to pursue another career instead of acting, what would it have been?
If I had to do another career instead of acting, there was no plan B. There really wasn't. I feel like if you have a plan B, then maybe you'll end up doing it, right? I mean, now, if you within the industry, I don't know. I'm enjoying developing. I would maybe try writing. I might just become a yoga instructor. A yoga / scuba diver instructor. That sounds like a nice life to me. If I was going to
scuba dive
completely, yeah,
oh, okay.
I do. I learned to originally.
If you actually did that, or if that was just like a fantasy.
No. I scuba dive. I was taught. I learned to use a regulator originally to do an underwater car crash scene for a pilot that I did years and years ago, and then it was actually scuba diving. It was actually a scuba diving holiday in Malta. Was the first time that Anthony and I had the conversation about me writing in darkness with him. So there you go.
Scuba while underwater?
No, not while underwater.
You were like swimming. He's like, right, let's swim.
I think he likes scuba diving because I can't talk.
Next question.
Hi, Natalie. I'm a big fan in like all of your works, and I admire both your on-screen and behind-the-camera work. So I was just wondering, since that you've been in many TV shows and movies, which one do you prefer more?
That's like asking a mother of 8 kids which child she prefers. It's like I really can't, you know. All the characters I play have a little bit of my heart for different reasons. I mean, maybe I have slight favorites, the way maybe some mothers do with 8 kids. But it changes. No, I mean, you know, Sophia is obviously special because I wrote her. Anne Boleyn is very special because it was my first big break. I mean, Marjorie will always be special. And so, you see what I'm saying? It goes on. I'm just going to tell you every single one I've ever played is special.
Next question.
Which isn't answering the question at all.
Hi.
Hi.
So, big fan. I loved following your run in Venus and Fur.
Oh, great. Yes, thank you. Which was also special.
Yeah. I love the female characters you play. So I was wondering, going off of Venus and Fur, do you ever plan on going back to stage work, whether on West End or on Broadway?
I would love to be in New York and do Broadway, 100%. I consider myself a stage actor at heart. That is like where I started. It's my training. And I love camera work, but in my heart, it always feels like going home. So the 3 months that I did before Christmas back to the stage, I made a mental note not to leave it so long next time. It's been like 5 years between each time I've been on the stage. I think it's probably time to make that 2 years at max. Yeah.
Picnic at Hanging Rock starts streaming on Amazon in 2 days or in a couple days, by Friday, on Friday?
25th of May.
I think that's Friday. It says 25th. I think it's Friday.
It is Friday.
Yes,
it's Friday the 25th of May. They both come out on the same day.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Because that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, absolutely. Picnic at Hanging Rock on Amazon, Friday, May 25th. In Darkness, theatrical and video on demand, amazing. Friday, May 25th.
Congratulations on the film, everybody. Natalie Dormer, let's hear it.
Thanks, Ricky.